Announce it now. Okay.
I'll be back.
Silence or quiet talking. So before we start, I'm supposed to mention this thing that I don't think the boot campers are made super aware of. We're having an excursion on Saturday morning at like 6:30 a.m. to 10.
6 a.m.
6 a.m.
Oh my god.
We're trying to hit the sunrise, y'all.
We're trying to hit the sunrise.
We want the aesthetic photos.
We want the aesthetic photos.
With some movies involved would be nice. We have 5 spots or something?
If you have a car, you can add more spots.
I mean, yeah, that's...
We have 5 spots still left on the sign-up sheet.
Yeah, if more heroes with cars come in, that could change. But basically, like, take a look at it. If you want to go, then sign up on... There's like a spreadsheet, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
In the GT channel.
Yeah.
Look at Michelle's general post.
Yeah, it's a pretty long post. There's a thread in it. People asking questions and such. Okay. Did you get that? Do you know what's up?
Still not.
Still around? You guys guys know about that? Saturday? Morning. I was worried it would be the afternoon. I'm actually glad it's in the morning. Just makes life easier a little bit.
Is it pretty?
I've never been. Is it pretty? It's pretty. Very pretty.
Am I gonna say no?
I mean, yeah. What are you gonna do? Sunrise, right?
We'll have a banner that looks good and everything. It'll be cute.
Wow.
I'm going to stay up.
Oh, you are?
I'm going to 6 Flags. Well, I'm doing 30 minutes.
He'll be
bed.
trolling around 6
And,
Flags because he's afraid of heights. You know.
Till midnight and then I wake up at 6?
Yeah. Are you nodding?
Katie, sorry.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
I'll be back.
Okay. James will be back, I guess. So that was the only announcement I had to make. I'm just gonna jump into like some learning stuff, some important stuff. Can I get attention again from a couple of I'm starting?
I have a question.
Yes.
Real quick. This is
What's
off
up?
topic, but not off.
Totally fine.
Okay, so like it says this event is worth 4 bits. How many of those are we gonna get by the end of this semester?
It's like James is like coming and going. It's something weird like 45, and it's like I'm fighting to make sure it's like if you go to the meetings or if you go to like the boot camps or you participate online, and I'm going to figure out a way for it to like if you don't attend or you can't attend for some reason, you can still like say that you went through the stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't been designing this with bits in mind because this is a weird ops initiative that I didn't know much about. It was something like, I feel like every boot camper will be fine for the next week because there's some deadline of like 15 bits by September 28th, and you're probably all wondering like how many do I have, how do numbers
And
work?
how much is each meeting?
Right. It used to, James said like 1 bit per, and I was like, no, it should be 2 per. So it's like, because of how weird it's been and because I haven't been keeping good track, you'll all be fine. And after the 28th, I'll figure out a way to like accurately log how many lessons you guys have gone through. Because I was gonna do it pretty loosely, like follow along where you can, but this system is like kind of weird with that. So I think I'll line it up with like at the end of the 4-week sprint that we do through all the fundamentals, if you show me the final project and we figure out which track you're on, that'll be like 10, 15 bits or something, so it just makes up for all the meetings because the final project sort of proves like you've been paying attention so you knew what to do. So that's probably how we'll figure it out. I just say don't worry about it,
Okay.
honestly. It's more for the members because we don't want to lose them.
Have you lost a lot of members?
Between semesters, it's usually between the spring and the fall because it's people graduating or people joining new orgs or trying something else, and then they end up leaving project teams. Between the fall and the spring, it's not as big of an issue, but it's still something we're trying to fix because we have gotten a fair amount of fall off. I don't know the exact percentages, but it's like more than we want. So that's the issue there. In boot camp, there's been a huge amount of fall off, but that's just been, that's on me to fix that. It's not on the bits and stuff. Someone said something?
Survival rate?
Survival rate? That's straight up what it used to be, was survival rate. It was like slamming you with 10 hours of work the first week, and it's like, get ready, this is it. And this ain't that at all. It'll ramp up more when we get into like framework specific stuff, but the first 4 weeks aren't going to be too terrible. I already sort of crossed out one of the projects I had, which was like you guys making a business card with CSS, and instead we're just doing in-person activities because it's been so weird with like who's been able to do the online stuff and who hasn't. You want to do that?
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Okay. I mean, you can't print it.
That doesn't look cool though.
It's up to you to make it look cool. I don't know. Should we just scrap what we're doing? No. I'm not doing that. I'll put that up. And I'm still floating around on that. Yeah. I'll put that up. But the problem is I had to make one that looked really nice myself to like show you guys or to flex a little about what you could do. And I didn't have time to do that in Flex. So that's been floating around. It's like a business card doesn't like test a whole lot of CSS. It's a lot of styling and not a lot of layout, which is great, but it's not like the focus. So that's why I mixed it in place of something else. But anyways, we'll move on from that. I put up this slide because of like the thing I put it up late. I had mentioned Flexbox Froggy on Thursday. I didn't say much about it. There wasn't a whole lot of people that looked at it by Tuesday. So on Wednesday, I decided to put something in where it's like, send me a screenshot to make sure that you did it. You can check the bootcamp Slack. You may have missed it, that's fine. I should have put it up Tuesday night, but didn't have time. So if you didn't get to it, please get it done by Tuesday. It's not that we'll be going over CSS after today, but you'll be more and more behind if you like put it off. So go over that. I had like a little Flexers Hall of Fame here. I got 20 people to do it, it looks like. Or no, I think it was 18, which is okay. It's pretty good considering I put it up yesterday as like a requirement to send me a screenshot. And I got a couple last minute people just recently, and it's chill if you're doing it right now. But you know, get it done in the next few days, send it to me. I don't know, if you're not on here within like a week, I'll probably Slack you and ask, hey, what's up? But anyways, that was the only thing to go over there. So today's the last day of CSS stuff, or at least just like raw CSS without any JavaScript involved. It'll come back later if you do the front end track, of course. But this is the last thing we're gonna focus on it right now. And we're gonna jump into JavaScript in the second half of this. We started a little late, but oh well. Okay, Luke, okay, yeah, I see you. Alex, yeah, sorry, I'm looking at DMs. Oh, of course, yeah. No, it'd be like that sometimes. Doesn't really make a difference. So for the last day, because there's been some confusion, especially with how I explained Flexbox and how goosey it was, we're gonna do one last activity that sort of ties everything together. And instead of me just like showing you something and saying, build it, we're gonna go step by step with like first make it look like this and then change it to make it look like this and so on. So it's gonna be a little challenge that'll take like 20-25 minutes maybe. And we'll keep like do a step, break, talk about how to do it, and then go back and forth like that. Like one of those paintings where you like, you know, start, do the next thing, and then all of a sudden you have to make everything look good. That's actually, yeah, it's 5 steps, and that's exactly how it goes. So let's jump into it. So what we're going to do is we're going to remake YouTube again, but actually make it look good and include like a nav bar and all of the thumbnails and all of that. So we're gonna start by trying to build just the thumbnails. So we're just gonna make one to start, and inside of that thumbnail, this is the whole width of the screen. So you just make a big box that takes up the whole width. Put a red border on it so that it's easy to see like where the edges of that box are, so that when you're styling stuff, you sort of know the boundaries. So put a border on it, choose something that takes up the width, and put an image. I'll put up, it's pixum.photos / the dimensions. I'll put that up again in case you forgot. And then a header with the video title, and then 2 paragraphs, one with the author and one with how many views it is. You can put whatever text you want in there, just whatever makes it clear to you what it represents. So do that. And also do an image that's wider than it is tall. I made it square there, but it would probably be better if you do it like 300 width, 200 height. I'll throw up a code pen right now to show you what I mean. I'll get to your question, sorry.
Oh, does HTML take emojis? Like in the paragraph, like if you put an emoji?
It's a great question, yes. Shoot. How do I? Okay. So like this to do photos, once again, you source, then don't forget the HTTPS and run it pixel.photos/width/height. So this is 300 pixels by 200 pixels. And then that's what you get. It just makes your life easier. You can also go to Google Images and then right click and I think it's right click and then view image, or it was something. You can right click on a Google image and then go to, I think it's open image in a new tab. That's what it is. And then you can copy the link and use that here. That's another way you can do images. But yeah, go like that. And going back here, make this. Sorry, I need to grab this really quick. I'll put on slightly quiet music. Is this too?
That was okay.
That was okay. I can't tell because I think I'm muted. And again, put songs in the playlist if you want to hear them.
What's the font?
Helvetica. Do whatever. Yet again.
Yeah.
It never stops.
What's your favorite font?
My favorite. That's one of my least favorites. I would say Avenir because it looks good with literally everything. It's very chubby, modern looking font. I'll actually use it on this. I'll use it on mine. Do what? Right now, don't worry too much about spacing and dimensions. Dimensions of which part? Oh, the photo. 300 width, 200 height. You can style that with CSS or just use pixel.photos/whatever.
It's not showing up whatsoever. Oh yeah.
Oh,
How are we doing?
Are we supposed to make the upper padding smaller than the side padding?
Don't worry about padding or margins yet.
Okay.
It's just it'll be easier once we like make it actually look like a thumbnail. But yeah, again, don't worry about any styling yet. Just get the things on the page. Doing the that. Can I throw up a solution, or are people still thinking? No? Okay. I'm sorry, but there's like 5-ish steps, so I didn't want to like. Yeah, I'll just throw this up now. So this is how I was thinking. I didn't do any padding or anything weird. I just put the things on the page. So I use Avenir font. I use an emoji. And all it is a div, because I know that's going to be display block. I know it'll fill the page, so I made that a div. And then I put a border on it, and that's how you write a border, by the way. I don't blame you if you forgot that's how you write borders. You say the how thick the border is, whether you want it solid or a dashed line or a dotted line or whatever. In this case, it's a solid line, and then the color, which is red. That's how you do borders. That was probably a missing piece for a couple people. And then it's just an image with the source in H1. It's the main header. That may change to an H2 or an H3 depending on how our page ends up looking. And then 2 paragraphs, one with the author and one with the user. That's all. I haven't edited padding or anything like that yet. So I'm just going to go over here. Step 1.5, copy and paste that layout a ton of times. Yes. Basically just copy and paste that block many times on the page. Everyone got this copied down if they were missing those stuffs. Okay, not hearing anyone.
Yes.
Wait.
Yeah.
You good? Okay. So I'm just going to jump to step 2. Look off a neighbor if you missed something. But the next thing I want you to do, again, don't mess with margins or padding unless you want to, and you like see how you can make it look a little nicer. But the main thing you want to do is stop being that thing being 100% the width and having them go in rows like this. So take that thing you copy paste it and make it not take up the whole width. Yes.
I just basically copied and pasted the HTML like a bunch of times in the previous step. Is that the right step? Is that the right thing to do?
Yeah, that was step 1.5. And then you can just use the same class you were already targeting and modify the styles to make it do this. And then add little margins between everything. So put a margin on the div. I'll just be up front. That's what I'm thinking. Gotta bring that down. How's it going? No? Okay. Hint, you should use the display property on the div and change something about it. Other hint, probably don't use Flexbox, it makes it a little cuter, but you still can.
And then another container that has all of this inside.
I guess my container class is like that.
No, your container class is just like.
Wait, why shouldn't we use Flexbox?
You can, but there's another thing you can do that's less work. You can do both.
Essentially, yeah, but
If you're thinking like flex row and then allow wrapping, you can do that. That's totally
you
fine.
should, yeah.
It gives you a little control over if you want them centered too, so that's like, it's good. It's a good way to do it.
Yeah, why isn't it screen? Try putting a space after this.
Oh, wait, over here. Maybe. There we go.
Yeah, you got it. So I put this inside another container with my because this is the one way to do it. So I put and another container that is
It should just wrap on its own to any number of rows.
I got like 8 of them, like one row, and like a scroll bar.
Are you using Flexbox?
Yeah.
That would explain it.
I need to use the class name.
Yeah.
Um,
There's one way you can do it without Flexbox that's even less lines of code, or lines of CSS. But if you use Flex, you can do Flex wrap and then set it to wrap, and then that will allow it to wrap to the next row instead of making a scroll bar.
Okay.
I don't understand. Each picture is a yeah, like each.
I'm kind of curious. Raise your hand if you use Flexbox. Raise your hand if you didn't use Flexbox. Huh. Kind of even. Well, more not Flexbox because I told you not to. After a second. But I guess we could at least start with Flexbox. I get it if it's fresh on your mind. Like this feels like something you want to use Flexbox for because you want them to like stop being the full width of the page. You want them to like line up in rows, which you can use flex direction row. But is it okay if I start showing a solution here?
Yeah.
We good? Okay, yeah, for sure, for
so
sure.
With the container inside
Uh,
the container.
Yeah.
There will just-
This is the solution that I did, and this is what you can do without Flexbox. So the only things I changed are I copied it a bunch of times. I modified some margins and stuff on like the header and the paragraph. Do with that whatever you want, whatever you will. I changed the font size, changed the spacing a little bit. That's just like designer preference, whatever. The meat of it is just changing it to display inline block, and they display inline with like a bunch of blocks. And then it'll just wrap to the next row because they just take up whatever width they need to, and then they'll fit wherever they can fit. So like if I were to resize this, it would just kind of, float to the next line as you would expect. And this saves a little bit of effort compared to Flexbox, because first of all, with Flexbox, we would have to make a container around this whole thing, and then set that big container around everything to display Flex, which is fine, but it means now you have another container that you didn't really need. And then you also have to do 2 lines instead of 1. You have to do flex direction row, and then flex wrap in order for it to wrap to the next row instead of making a big scroll bar. Or you can just do display inline block and nothing else, and then you get basically the same result. The only reason you wouldn't want to do that is if you really cared about, like, over here you can sort of see like there's more padding over here compared to over here, like the spacing's a little off. So if you wanted to center that up, or you want to have any flexibility of like this spacing and having it like dynamically change, Flexbox would be what you want for that. But for this example, it's display inline, just like display inline block, move on with your life. And we'll get into like a more Flexboxy thing with the next couple steps. So step 3. Now I want you to keep that layout that you already have as it is. And I want you to add this thing on the top, and this should stay in place while you scroll. It shouldn't move, and it should be a big white box. You can put a border on it if it helps you see what's going on. And then it should have some items in it. It should have a header. It should have a div with some text in it, and it should have 2 links. And those links can go to whatever URLs you want. You can copy and paste the ones that YouTube uses if you want to make it like authentic. But yeah, just 2 links, header, and a box with search in it. And that takes up the whole width of the screen again. And for the box on the top, I highly recommend you use the nav tag instead of the div tag, because it makes your styles more readable. It means you don't have to make another class. It's better for screen readers and stuff like that. There's a whole slew of reasons. But if you know it's a nav bar, use a nav element instead of a div. My 2 cents, but they'll both look the same. once more with feeling, don't worry about padding or margins yet. Because this isn't how the improv's going. How's everyone doing? Thumbs up if you're like cool with me showing the solution yet. Show if you're not. Okay. I'm gonna wait a little bit longer. Okay, how about now? Now?
I don't have the links.
The what?
Links.
Oh, I see. I'll just, I mean, you use the A tag
Okay.
to anyone who was wondering.
HF?
Yeah. Oh, the href can be just empty quotes if you want.
I'll say that. I'm done except putting up the links.
Yeah.
How are you supposed to, how are you supposed to do this so that that's not directly partial? So you just need like. Wait, how did you do it? Yeah.
Oh, I did it. I did it margin left, right? So it's like if the text is over here, it would be
Okay, I guess I
so like to avoid that. Yeah, I didn't want to focus too hard on it because the last step is us focusing harder on margin.
Okay.
Put a margin on text. You can also put padding on the container, but that'll also put padding around the image. So it would be better to put margin on the H1.
So can I just run
You can, because it's not anywhere else on the page yet. I would suggest, and I'm going to talk about this, making YouTube like the nav header, the header of the page in H1, and then changing these to H2s, which kind of sucks because you wrote it everywhere, didn't you? In that case, if you don't want to copy paste that everywhere, you could do thumbnail, dot thumbnail, and then like that symbol, and then that, and then H1. So then it'll just style H1s inside of the thumbnail. That means style anything that's inside of this thing, basically. This will only apply the styles to H1s that are inside of a dot thumbnail object. So this one is inside of a dot thumbnail.
Yeah, H1.
But if we had style on H1, that would say inside of our nav. So that'll prevent us from styling the H1s inside of our nav and only style the ones inside of it.
Okay, got it.
simply we're gonna need a container. In this case, you would probably have like a container on everything. Okay, I'm gonna jump into a solution. Because we're a little low on time. Okay, so this is what I did. Pretty simple. I used position fixed so that when I scroll it stays on the page. I put a background white and a border so I could see what's going on. I made it a line to the top, I made it a line to the left, and then in order to make it fill up the whole width of everything, I said right 0, so that way it'll be flush to the right side and flush to the left side. You can also just make it a width of 100%, that'll be 100% the nearest container. Or you can even do this wacky unit called VWs, which are the width of the actual viewport. So that's like 100% the width of the page, rather than the container it's inside of. That's a weirder one, and I haven't explained it yet, but if you ever look up, like, how do I make it take up the width of the page regardless of what container it's inside of, you would use VW, but 100% is what we know how to do when it works. So I'm gonna leave it there, or do right 0, either one. And that's about it. Other things, I put a border on the search paragraph, and if we look at our HTML, it's a nav. There's an H1, there's a paragraph that says search, and 2 links that are A tags, and then every A tag should have an href or something. I put a fake one, you can put whatever URL you want there, and if you click on it, it'll go to that web page. So step 4, do that to our box. So the difference is all the elements are going to stay the same, but now we want them to wrap into a single row. And the most important part that you may not know from Froggyland is make the search box fill up the width of everything and have the other one squish to the sides. And in order to do that, if you take a look at the Flexbox page on the Notion, there's a section just below the link to Flexbox Froggy about display, or it's about the flex property. It explains it a little bit. Basically, all I need to know is that it will be using the flex property on the search box in order to get it to fill everything. Back to this. The code, of course. That makes way more sense.
If I write 2 href like that, I get like side by side.
That's fine. Yeah. Because now we're just making everything side by side. Like, there's no reason to do it. But if you were curious how to change that, you can target those links and then make them display block. Then they should fill up.
Okay.
Because they're inline block, or they're inline by default. Block will make it take up 100% the width, so they can't go next to each other like that. Unless you're using a flexbox.
Good song.
Yeah. I did not choose this. But I respect it. Why did we lose music? Weird.
Can we go back to that?
Yeah, of course.
Are you gonna be posting a video about this?
Am I doing what?
Are you gonna be posting a video about this?
I'm recording it right now. I'm doing a screen recording this activity. Well, what's up?
And do you post a video for every single show?
It's been so rocky. I have one from Thursday. I didn't have one on Tuesday, not that it would have been very useful, but I'll put up the one on Thursday. And then I have videos of most of the activities. The only one I haven't put up is the thing we did on Tuesday, which was making a nav bar with Flexbox. I have that video recorded, I just need to edit it for a second. I'll put that up tonight. And slag me angrily and hold me to that.
Like, sometimes I have to be somewhere like 7:30 and I need to miss stuff, so.
I get it. Yeah, I really need to make sure everything's available. Is anyone confused? Feel like they're missing something? Yes? Maybe? Do you want me to go over there? Are you good?
Change the width of the screen. Did you make a video?
Yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't change the Do you have to? Does it have to?
No,
I don't sure it's yeah.
I heard that we don't have to use the scope. We have to use the div search bar.
The search bar.
Oh. You got rid of this one. Yes. The search box.
I know they told me. Yeah, I used to think I do.
One of the display flags on the container. So you want to put it on instead of
Content, center, and then a line in the space in between.
Yeah, you can. Yeah,
Maybe a row.
you could have.
No, you don't need it for done
There's something that I do typically where I do like width 100% and then max width something, so then it like keeps growing until it hits the max width and stops growing.
Maybe it's a line.
So it's like running with like width 100% max width, whatever. The max.
You actually need
So if you want to like the search bars like.
Oh wait, so there's like a, I just see search.
Oh, little foul. Okay.
Oh, it was a
I
line item.
see it.
Items. A line item.
That's a good one.
Okay, that's like kind of close-ish.
How do you know that?
We're getting there.
Yo, how do I freaking make an X code?
Is
We're trying to make my stuff why is it not? Why is it not actually?
say it's kind of like fraction bits, where it's like everything is a for instance and this applies to like the solution. So in this case, and that would say that I want to grow. Yeah.
I mean, they're in the down.
So I did the
Oh.
I did like.
I caught you, bro.
Maybe just.
Why does it just
Sorry.
I think the idea is just an
Yeah, but I wanted to see like maybe half and then really 75%.
Oh, we give it
So you can probably do a larger left, 25%. Yeah.
What's the difference between line items?
Maybe two tabs. So they should both be the same item. Yeah.
Alright, so what the why is this one? Why's my search bar not?
It's all good.
Okay, I do have to move on,
Good.
but it's all good.
Um,
Yeah, this is taking a little longer than I was thinking, but oh well. I'm just gonna jump into a solution. I didn't do a whole lot with it. All I did was apply and display flex to it, so that everything flexes in a row. I put a line item center so that everything is centered vertically, because a line items applies to the cross axis. Row is the main axis, so horizontal, it's like the main direction you're going, and line items is the other direction, so vertical. So that centers it vertically. All this should be the same, I think. And then otherwise, I put a border, yeah. And then the main thing that I was asking you guys to look for was putting a flex of 1 on the search box, which makes it fill up the remaining space. And that's because of the way flex works. I didn't explain it in person, but it's on the Notion. It has a video attached to it as well where Wes Voss, who's like the best resource, if you ever see him on YouTube or anything, just watch the video. But he walks through using the flex property and how it can be useful. I'll do it really briefly here because this example is not super obvious. But if I were to put a style on some of these other ones, like I'm going to put a flex of 1 on literally every element inside of this. So now I'm saying a flex of 1 should be on every link and header and so on. So now it's a little more clear, I hope, where everything is a flex of 1. And there are a total of 4 elements here. So you can think of flex basically like fractions, where this is like the search box is a flex of 1, and there are 4 elements, so it's going to take up 1/4 of the container. And then that's going to take up a 1/4, that's going to take up a 1/4, and so on. So if I were to like say I want it to take up 2, and then it'll become 5 total. So now it's going to take up 2/5 of the width, and then the other ones are going to take up 1/5. So it depends on like all the flex values of everything inside of the container to figure out how those proportions are going to work out. But it's basically just fractions of which one takes up more than the other. And if I resize the page, you'll see those like proportions sort of stick around. Yeah, it's a little slow to react, but that's what it's doing.
So flex 2 means the like 2 of the smallest unit.
Yeah, it's like 2. So it depends on like all the flexes added up. So it's like header has a flex of 1. Well, I'll move it back to 2. So like search box is a flex of 2. The header is a flex of 1, and then each link is a flex of 1, so that's 5 total. And then it's going to take up 2 of those 5 flex units.
Oh.
So it's 2/5.
So like in that whole line.
Yes. So you add up all the flex values for every item in the container in order to figure out how many total it's going to be out of. And by default, everything has a flex of 0, which basically means it's not going to scale up. Like this has a flex 0 by default. So when we put that flex of 2 or 1 or whatever, reduce your fractions, you know, it means the same thing. The flex of 0 means it's just not going to stretch out or be proportional at all. And it's basically just saying this is taking up 1 out of 1 units. Another thing you can do, which is true, you can do a width of 100%, and then it'll take up 100% the width of remaining space. This works too. It actually does the same thing. I just wanted to explain flex for a minute. But yeah, do either or. It is fine. And then that's the basis of the solution. Otherwise, I was just throwing some margins on things to fix the spacing up a little bit. So we're going to quickly ramp through, where is it? The last step, which is making everything look not bad. So I wanted to get rid of all the borders, add a drop shadow to the nav bar, and I'll just code this live, you know, because we don't have much time left. And then like make the links red, make the edges of the search box circular, all the little like fixes in order to make it look nice. And this looks more like the mobile view, if anyone's seen it, where that's like the drop shadow and then red buttons. But do that. That thing.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
So say you're like working on something, you have some color that you use a lot.
Yeah.
And the color's like a hex code.
Yeah.
Something like that, or some margins around it. You set a variable, like at the very top of your CSS page, and use that name instead of having like RGB or
Want me to do that? Yeah, I can do that.
I didn't know if you
This is a new thing that's actually not supported in Internet Explorer because Internet Explorer hates fun and isn't updated ever. You're probably not surprised, but yeah, we'll do that. I'm not going to explain this too much to everyone because this is like way beyond the scope of what we're doing. But you put everything on the root, and that like says this is available to every style you ever write. Don't worry about it too much. And then you can make a style that's like, I don't know, link color, and you use 2 dashes in the front of it. And then you assign a value to it. So that declares a variable that you can use everywhere now. So if I were to copy that, and then throw that in here, actually no, I don't want the header to be red, I just want the links. I'll go ahead and say color, and then, oh my god, var, which says I'm about to use a variable, parentheses, and then the name of the variable.
Okay, so you came up with the link color part?
Yeah, so link color is like the name of the variable, and its value is set to red. And I put it on the root,
Yeah,
so
but
that's
then-
available to every style.
And then you could be like ASDF.
Yeah, but you just have to have 2 dashes in front.
Yeah.
The 2 dashes are the important part. And does everyone know what hex codes are? Yeah? Okay, good. Because I never went over it in person. It might be in one of the videos that I recorded, but I didn't go over it live. But it's like when you do the little hashtag and then the letters, and you can like get hex codes for whatever color you want. If you Google it now, you can just Google a hex color picker and just kind of slide around a bunch. Then when you find the one you want, you can just copy this value and paste it in your code, and it just works. Like there, I made the links that shade of blue that I dragged randomly. So that's a thing. If you need more flexibility than red, if you want to be like a dark red that's this specific shade, use hex codes, and you can use Google to help you out. Or you can use RGBs, all these other units, but you'll probably just use hex codes when you're starting out. Yeah. So I'm just gonna do this live. If anyone remembers what we were doing, we were just putting a drop shadow on the container, rounding out some corners, changing some colors, doing whatever. These are things I didn't go over super well, so I'm just gonna do them. Again, drop shadows are box dash shadow, and then the first value is the color of the drop shadow. In this case, well, I'll do a dark black, which I know is like that. And then I'll do the offset left or right, which I don't want it to be offset left or right. And then the offset up and down. And I'll manipulate this in a second to like show you. And then the spread of it. And then that's what it looks like. And to show you what this property does, if I like make it 20, it'll shift it further and further down away from the element. So there you can see like what a drop shadow actually looks like, sort of peeking down. And then this value is the spread. So like how much does it fade off? Like you can make it fade off a ton, or you can make it fade off like very little. In this case, I would probably put 0 on this. Just no offset and have it look like that. Or maybe like 5, I don't know. Talk to a designer and ask them 1 to 10, how ugly is it? What else? Round some things, we'll round some things. Border radius is what you use to round corners. And then you set it to a pixel value of how round you want it to be. This is not very round. This is very round. And then this is like kind of what I want. What else? We can change the color of the links. We set it, I made a variable. Don't worry about this. You don't have to know this. Just have some overachievers out here. And then maybe we want to get rid of the underline. This is something that's like, it's kind of a one-off thing to know because it's, I think it's like text generation none. Yeah, that gets rid of underlines. Text decoration like decides whether you have underlines or dashed lines underneath things or just little frills that you might put on something. In this case, I want to get rid of it. So you can do that to get rid of underlines on your links. What else? We can do other things. I mean, I'll get rid of the border around this, finally. And oh yeah, the last thing is stopping this from like overlapping on stuff. That's annoying. There's an easy way to fix that. And it involves putting a container around everything. Again, CodePen has an invisible body container around all the code that you write. So I'm not going to add a body element, just assume it's there. And it's giving everything a hug. And you don't see it. And I'm just going to put padding on the top of it, which changes the spacing from the top. Or sorry, padding on the top. And then that will space it about the size of the nav bar. And you kind of just feel it out until it's the right margin. And then it should still scroll fine. It just, looks better. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about this. I wish I had time to like show someone's off because that's what I was planning on doing. If someone wants to like DM me theirs if they're like proud of it. Yeah, do that now. I might do that. I'm not going to critique it. I'm just going to be proud. I don't think there's anything else in the slide deck. I was just going to jump into JavaScript, very fast. We have 20 minutes. We started late. Do you mind if we stop at like 8:05? You can leave. I'll just keep going. How about that? I'll be that annoying teacher that doesn't stop talking. What? Okay. By the way, I mentioned this and I didn't mention it again for today, or I may have. Did anyone read these? Getting started with JavaScript? Any of those sections? I said it in person but didn't put it on the Slack. So about 3 or 4 people. Yeah. Read those. I don't have a ton of time to go over them because they're like the fundamentals of how JS is a language. And I just wanted to jump into like uses for JavaScript instead of like, here's how strings work. But here's how strings work. So a little spiel about what JS does. You can read that on your own. It's a scripting language. It's not Java. Regardless of whatever recruiters tell you, Java and JavaScript are not the same thing. And don't try to pawn yourself off as a web developer saying you know Java, because it's not the same thing. They're actually extremely different languages. So first of all, show of hands, who used Java before? Yeah. Throw it away. So Java is an object-oriented language, which means that it's class-based. So every time you make something, you have to make a class. And then you have some starter variables, you have a constructor of some kind. Then you have some methods inside of that tell that object what to do. And it means you have all this stuff with like inheritance, where you have like an animal interface, and then you have your dog and your cat, which is like every midterm ever. And then, yeah, all of that stuff where so you have classes inheriting from other classes. They have methods that do things relating to the variables inside of that class. And that's how everything's structured. JavaScript technically has classes, but we're not going to talk about those because it's weird. But JavaScript is a function-based language. Functions are first-class citizens, where instead of writing classes around everything, you basically just write functions that take in some parameters and put out something. So a lot like the methods that you write inside of classes, JavaScript just has functions that aren't inside of classes. They just take in variables and put out new ones. And then everything's inside of a script file that gets loaded onto the page. And the main use for JavaScript is that it can target things inside of your HTML and move them around or do stuff to them. The main use for that, of course, is like you have a button on the page, and then you want JavaScript to do something when you click on that button. It's able to like find that button inside of your page and then attach some sort of event to it. Like maybe it's calling a server, maybe it's putting a pop-up onto the screen or something like that. It can be anything. And then it just manipulates whatever's on the page. Or gets data from somewhere else. It's the main uses for JavaScript. I wish arrow keys would like go to the next page. Am I the only one? What else? So the fundamentals is it's a longer section. There's a lot to talk about. The main thing is declaring variables and variables and types, so on and so forth. The two things that you have to know is the one other comparison I did make. Java is a strongly typed language, which means you have an integer or a number, you have to say that it is an int, and then you assign a value to it, as you probably know. If you have a string, you have to use capital string, and then you put your string value on it, or use string builder or something crazy. So basically, every time you have a variable, you have to say what type of variable it is. JavaScript is very much not that. TypeScript technically exists, but JavaScript, you do not have to say the type of a variable. You just kind of say, I want it to be a thing, and I want it to hold this. And if it holds a number later, sure, free spirit. And then the only discrepancy you need to know is how you declare a variable. You can make it a let, which is just a variable that you assign, and then you can change its value later on if you want. Or a const, which stands for constant, of course. Where once you assign it a value, I can't assign it a new value, it'll throw an error. So you can't do that. And then there's some weirdness that we'll get into later, but that's after I explain objects and everything. Moving on here, I'll do some live coding at some point, but this is like just raw fundamentals, so it's like I gotta explain them. Variables and types. These are all of the types that JavaScript can have in the comments here. The types that you'll end up using is undefined, string, number, boolean, an object, and then a couple other examples of things that are undefined or an object, but you wouldn't expect them to be. And you can use type of in order to see what type that variable is. But basically, it infers the type based on the value that you assign to it. So like here I assigned a number to this variable, and then when I check the type of it, the most recent assignment I did was assigning it a number. So it thinks it's a number. But this basically just like sums up the types of variables that it can be, though you'll never really be checking the types of variables that often. I'm not going to go too in depth on these other than the difference between null and undefined, which I'll explain later. The way everything works, whenever you want to structure your data, is with an object. It's the most important structure to know. And if you've ever done like data structures classes with Java, you got like linked list, you have arrays, array list, all that stuff. JavaScript has an array and an array. Yeah. And objects, and that's kind of about it. And then you can like declare your own prototypes around things, but we're not going to get into that. So you don't have to worry about any data structure in JavaScript. It's just like you have arrays, which are a list of elements that you can add to, and then objects, which are like a hash map. Raise your hand if you know what a hash map is. That's a lot, but I know there are some of you that probably haven't learned that yet. But it's very easy to explain in JavaScript, not so in Java, really. That's how objects work. They're basically maps, where you have a key, which is what you use to reference that value, and then you have the value that's assigned to it. So in this case, I created an object called teacher, and then inside of that are three sort of sub-values inside of it that you can access, or keys, and then each of those has a value associated with it, in that case a string, a number, and a very flattering string. You can access the attributes on an object. I'll actually go ahead and open up a console. At this point, I'm just gonna like start riffing, like actually doing a live example. So I can show you guys like typing something out, how it feels. So in order to do that, I'm actually going to open a console window and just start typing JavaScript so that you guys can see how it works. And this is something you can do yourself. If you're ever curious about like what a JavaScript function is going to do, you can right-click and hit inspect on your page, and then you'll be taken to this section, like the elements. This is what we've been looking at, this is what we've seen. But instead, you're going to go to this tab over here called the console, and in this is where you can, first of all, get certain objects and stuff that are on your page from JavaScript. Sorry, I'm distracted because the music came back on. That is so weird. How long has it been on?
Just a little bit. I think you accidentally played it. I can switch it.
Maybe. It stopped playing for a while, like the audio cut out. So maybe it just came back. I don't know. But yeah, sorry. So the console. This is basically where you can debug all the JavaScript running on your page. But in our case, we can just write some new JavaScript in order to see how it works. And if you've ever dealt with a terminal, like a Python terminal or Java